I'm David Griffith and I'm going to show you today how to make a trap to get rid of the dreaded fruit fly. Since we've started juicing a lot more fruit and vegetables and growing our own food, we have a lot more fruit and veg lying around, and we've had a complete infestation of fruit flies this year and last year during the summer especially. So it was driving me mad for a while. Tried using the Hoover and that works, but they just keep coming. So I decided to try and find a way to actually get rid of them and control the problem completely. And this works beautifully. So we're going to make a little trap. We're going to draw them in so they can't get out. Very simple. A glass jar. This is just a mayonnaise jar. Scissors, piece of paper, some sellotape, and some rotting fruit or veg. Generally I use tomatoes, a bit of pineapple, something like that, something that rots, and they just love it. Anything that they're all over, put it in there. So we get rid of this lid because we're not going to need that. So the first thing we do is we've got our mayonnaise jar here. We need to roll this paper in a form into a cone so that we can sit it into the top of the jar. So I'm just going to start at one corner like this, roll it around. This is a little bit tricky to get the right size and shape. I'm just going to roll it around like this to get a rough cone. Okay, so we've got a rough cone shape. What we want to do is we want to get this hole at the bottom to be quite small, but not too small. This is the trickiest part, I find, is to get the shape right and the hole size right. So you don't want the flies to be able to find their way back out again. So that's roughly about the right size. You can see the shape of the paper. If I sit that down into the jar, that sits quite nicely. So I'm going to take a piece of sellotape and I'm just going to put a piece of sellotape along this ridge. I have some sellotape already prepared here because it's a bit tricky to do this with two hands only. I'm going to run some sellotape down that ridge so that the paper doesn't separate when I let it go. Sit it down into the jar. As you can see, the end of the cone goes about 2/3 of the way down the jar because we don't want it going all the way down, especially if there's going to be any liquid or anything at the bottom of the jar. So it's sitting nice and snugly in the top here, so there's no way that flies would be able to get back out the outside. So now the size is approximately right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors. I'm just going to make a nick roughly where I want it, so I'm leaving about a couple of inches above the top of the jar. I'm going to take that out. I'm just going to cut off that excess paper straight across, which makes a nice little cone for me to pop in here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to secure that in there so that there's no way it can come back out and that the flies can't climb out around the edge or anything. But the most important thing to remember at this stage is put your fruit and veg in before you seal up the jar. Otherwise you're going to have to undo it all again. So we'll just throw that into the bottom of the jar. And this is our bait. Fruit flies are going to love this, especially in about 2 days time when it starts to rot a bit in there. They're just going to go crazy for it. So we're going to pop the cone in on the top. We're just going to snip straight down just around the cone like this. This will just make it easier to fold down the paper around the edges. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to seal it. So you can pull those flaps down around the edge of the jar like that. Flatten them down a bit. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to seal it with sellotape anyway. I'm going to take a nice big piece of sellotape that we have here, and we're going to start wrapping that around the outside just to keep it all together. Remember, this doesn't have to be tidy, this is to catch flies. This is not to sell in a shop. Okay, so now we have our paper fairly well secured. What I like to do is put some more tape around the top because there are some gaps there, leaving it about halfway up over the top so that we can fold it down afterwards, and just basically bring that tape all the way around like that. and then fold it in. And that will create a nice solid seal there. There's no way those flies can get back out or at the top of the jar. So basically what we end up with is a nice jar full of rotting fruit, which is going to attract the flies. And if you look in here, you should be able to see that there's a nice hole there for the fly to go through. But they're so clever, they can find their way through that hole, no problem, but they cannot find their way back out. Now, this works a treat. This has completely cleared up my fruit fly problem. And if you wonder whether it actually works or not, here's one I made 3 days ago. It's absolutely full of fruit flies, which is just magic. So what I tend to do is I give it a few days until it's black like this, and then I just fill it with water and drown them all. I know it's a bit sadistic, but you know, look at those guys. They've got to die. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you.